Everybody, welcome to the SlickPic Academy. I'm Kevin LaRue. Thanks for joining us. I'm joined by my colleague Sam, and of course our guest of honor, Ian. Hey, today we've got what promises to be an amazing presentation by our good friend and educator and SlickPic user, Ian Plant. He's going to be sharing images and stories and tips from, as you may have just heard, his recent workshop to the wild swamps of the southern U.S. He returned about 5 days ago, it sounds like, and so we're getting him when it's still very, very top of mind. Hey, what intrigued me about this presentation when I called up Ian and asked him if he would be willing to do it is his description of the images that he was able to shoot on this most recent workshop. When he said, "You're going to experience the mystery and intrigue of the bayous," right? And he entitled his portfolio "Ghost of the Bayou." I was instantly captivated. I had to know more. So before we get started, though, I want to tell you just a few things about Ian, because I don't know how much he's gonna, shine his own shoes here and tell you about himself. He tends to be a fairly humble guy, in my experience, but he's been a full-time pro photographer for over 20 years and travels the world looking for amazing places and subjects to capture. I mean, if you've looked at his website at ianplant.com, you've seen just a panoply of amazing jaw-dropping photos, and I hope he continues to do that for years to come. Ian's work has appeared in photo magazines. You remember magazines, right? Those things we used to buy at the grocery store. Outdoor Photographer, Pop Photo, Landscape Photography. These are great books, and he's also a frequent speaker at leading photo conferences, and both online and in person. One thing I'm especially happy to tell you about is he's the founder of an organization called the Photo Masters, and this is his love of helping thousands of photography enthusiasts around the world. Just the mission is simple: become the best photographers they can be. And he does this through articles, ebooks, instructional videos, and maybe even presentations like this. So again, you can check out his extensive portfolio at www.ianplant.com. And without further preamble, Ghosts of the Bayou, presentation by Ian Plant. Take it away, my friend.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for that great introduction. And thank you, Sam, as well, for hosting me today. And thank you all for joining me. I'm going to be talking about the cypress bayou of the Southeast United States. In particular, the one I go to is in East Texas. And I call the portfolio Ghosts of the Bayou because when I'm in the bayou, it really does feel haunted. It feels like the kind of place where if you go out and conditions are just right, you're gonna see something supernatural. I mean, I've never actually done that. I have encountered Bigfoot several times, but I've never seen any ghosts for real. And I'm joking about the Bigfoot. I don't believe in Bigfoot myself, but I'm a big fan of people who do believe in Bigfoot. And the locals have actually adopted Bigfoot as their spirit animal. So as you're going through the swamp, on occasion, you'll see like a Bigfoot statue or a Bigfoot cutout that someone's left in the middle of the swamp, which is pretty cool. So I tell my clients that I can guarantee Bigfoot sightings, but it's not real life Bigfoots. But in any event, without further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to start the presentation. And so let me just take care of a few things and click out a few things, sorry, and we'll get started. Okay, Kevin, just want to make sure you can see everything full screen.
Oh yeah, looking great, man.
Perfect. All right, so I'm going to be talking about the Bayou. Kevin's already given me an introduction. If you want to learn more about me or learn more from me, you can check out my personal website, ianplant.com, or my PhotoMasters site. And on PhotoMasters, you can also register for my free webinar, which is a great way to hear me talk some more about the art of photography. And just sort of taking the high view above the ground first, before we dive into the specifics of the bayou. I think that when you're making landscape photographs in particular, there's a few things that are key to making sure that you're going to make successful images that resonate with people. And so the first thing is that you want to showcase any unique aspects of the landscape that you're photographing. So I'm always thinking about what makes the particular landscape that I'm exploring, what makes that different from other landscapes? What are the features that stand out? And I try to showcase those unique features in my photos. And then I'm also thinking about the best type of light for that particular landscape. So a lot of landscapes might work with common types of light. Some landscapes that you're photographing might require a specific type of light to really bring them to life. And so you just kind of figure out what that best light is for that landscape. And then I'm also looking to tell a story using weather. And so weather interacts with the landscape. And for the landscape that you're photographing, you want to figure out the specific types of weather that interact best with that landscape. So you do all of these things, and that will allow you to create what I like to call a sense of place. You're just trying to immerse the viewer of your photographs in the experience that you had when you were there exploring that landscape. And so you use these unique features, you use the best light for the landscape and the weather that really brings that landscape to life to create that vicarious experience, that sense of place for the viewer that invites them into the scene, and it allows you to establish a stronger connection with the viewer. And so the Big Cypress Bayou is where I just came back from. And the Big Cypress Bayou, which is also known as Caddo Lake, is located around a small town in East Texas called Uncertain. Uncertain is really its name. It used to be when I would send out information for my Cypress Bayou photo tours, I would tell people we were going to be based out of Uncertain, Texas, and they thought it was a placeholder. People thought that I just put Uncertain because I wasn't sure where we were going to be meeting for the workshop. So I have to explain to people each and every time, this is actually the name of the town. And as you can see, it is right on the border with Louisiana, and it's very close to Arkansas as well. So you are in the eastern, almost east northern part of Texas. And just zooming in a little bit closer, you can see Caddo Lake, which crosses over into the border with Louisiana. And Uncertain is located up in the area that's known as the Big Cypress Bayou. So I'm going to zoom in one more time and just give you a closer look of the bayou. So the bayou itself is my favorite part of this area. So the Big Cypress Bayou is actually a river that flows into Caddo Lake. So Caddo Lake has got a dam on it. And so in effect, it is just damming of that river that creates the lake. And it's all part of this bald cypress ecosystem. It's actually, I think, like the biggest bald cypress forest in the world. And just zooming in a little bit more, you can see all the twisted waterways of the upper part of the bayou. And that's the area I really like. And so this is actually a drone image looking down at the Big Cypress Bayou from above. So this just gives you kind of an idea of what we're dealing with here. So you've got these narrow winding waterways surrounded by thick forests of bald cypress and other trees. And then getting down to ground level, or more appropriately, water level, as the case may be here, you can see what the Big Cypress Bayou looks like. And this is what it looks like to people who are visiting this swamp. And there is a lot going on here. There's a lot of interesting features. You've got the bald cypress trees, which are beautiful trees. They just have these amazing shapes, and they're covered in Spanish moss. And it's that Spanish moss that gives the bayou that haunted quality. It really looks very spooky. As a matter of fact, whenever my wife decorates our house and our front lawn for Halloween, she's putting up all of these fake cobwebs and spider webs. So it kind of looks like the house is covered in Spanish moss. So I really think that that adds to the spooky character. And then, of course, in autumn, the cypress leaves turn brilliant colors before falling off for the winter. So you've got some amazing color in the bayou as well. So it's a really fantastically, hauntingly beautiful place, an eerie place. And so bald cypress, they tend to gather either in the water or on the very swampy, moist land around the water. And they've got these extensive root systems, and these are called cypress knees. And these knees help stabilize the trees in this very moist ground or in the water that they're growing out of. And the knees also add a very unique quality to the way these bald cypress trees look. And they can be fascinating photo subjects in and of themselves. So this is a photo I took of a really complex weave of cypress knees that I found deep in the bayou while exploring it. And kind of looks to me like a kraken coming out of the water. So I really like the way that these knees tell a story. And so they really add to the unique character of the bayou. So when I'm thinking of the unique aspects of the bald cypress bayou, the cypress knees are one part of it, but to me, what makes it so unique is the autumn color. So if you're down there in early November, the first half of November, you can get some amazing color as the cypress needles turn and then eventually fall off. Cypress is a hardwood. It is known as a deciduous conifer, which is confusing to me. I'm not a tree expert or a plant expert, even though my last name is Plant. So I'm not exactly sure what that means, but basically the upshot is that they have these needles or leaves, whatever you want to call them, that do turn color in autumn and then fall off in the winter. Hence, that's why they're called bald cypress. And so the autumn color is one of the unique aspects that I want to capture in my photos. The Spanish moss is another unique aspect that helps tell the story. And then there are the reflections. Because there's so much water, you have the opportunity to incorporate reflections creatively into your photos. So typically I'm trying to incorporate all or most of these features into my photos when I'm photographing the bayou. And so then once I've got these unique aspects cataloged, I start thinking about the key weather variable for the landscape that I'm photographing. And each landscape location has its own key weather variable that's going to have the most significant impact on your shooting conditions. And so, for example, when I visit Badlands National Park in South Dakota, one of my favorite places in the world to do landscape photography, the key weather variable there is the summer thunderstorms. When the summer storms come across the Great Plains in summer, in May, June, and July, that is when you get the best conditions for photography at that particular landscape location. And a lot of people who do photography in the American Southwest in the desert want to be there during the summer monsoon. It's the same weather variable. If you're photographing on the coast, wind might be an important weather variable because the wind's going to push up the waves and make the wave action more exciting. For the bayou, the key weather event that I'm looking for is fog. Getting fog on the water really adds that sense of mystery. It really helps push that supernatural feel that you get when you're in the bayou. So having that fog is critical. So I pay close attention to the interaction of temperature and dew point, because when temperature and dew point collide, that is when you're likely to get fog. So I'm looking for those crisp, cold nights where everything is clear, temperature drops, and the temperature intersects with the dew point. And those conditions are going to create the best chance for fog. And so I'm very excited the next morning when I get up, ready to get out there and see if I get that fog on the water.
Hey,
And so the
Ian,
best light, yeah,
Ian, just a quick question on that.
sure.
So you're out there early enough so that as the sun comes up and the earth heats, is that the part that's creating the fog?
Well, so what is creating the fog is essentially the cool air interacting with the warm water. So
Ah, that's
in early winter or late fall, the water's still relatively warm. And so as the temperature starts to come down, you've got a really good chance of getting fog on the water and also fog on the land around it because the land can be very moist.
okay,
And
great.
so that's really what's going on. So I've heard rumors that in December, there's fog pretty much every morning because the temperatures have gotten cold enough, the lake's still warm enough, it just produces fog all the time. I've never been there in December, but that's certainly something that's kind of on my list of things to try out.
Mm. That sounds great. Thanks for clarifying that.
Mhm. Okay, and so when I'm thinking of the bayou, the best light is, I want to make sure I've got the very best light to reveal the true beauty of the bayou. And so for a lot of landscape locations, you're hoping for stunning sunrise and sunset skies or those beautiful twilight skies. But for the bayou, that's not really what I'm looking for. My approach is typically a lot different. Instead, what I'm looking for is either soft light, like an overcast light, so that I can see all the beautiful colors and the textures of the bayou, or I want clear skies. So I get really nice backlighting. When that Spanish moss is lit from behind, it appears to glow from within. And so on a cloudy day, I can make photos pretty much all day long in that soft light. When it's clear, during the middle part of the day, the light is just too bright and too contrasty. It's not good for photography. But in the hour or so after sunrise and the hour before sunset, that clear light is low, it's angled, it's backlighting the foliage and the Spanish moss. It takes on a warm color. And so you've got a little less contrast. You've got just the right angle for the light, and you can get some magical backlighting effects. So those, to me, are the two types of light that interact best with these unique features of the bayou. And sure, if I've got a really beautiful sunrise sky, for example, where the whole sky lights up, I might think about going wider and including some tree silhouettes against that sunrise sky. But the light that really excites me, the light that's going to bring out the beauty of the bayou in the most unique way, in my opinion, is either that soft overcast light or that really intense backlighting near sunrise and sunset. And so when I'm in the bayou, what am I looking for? When I'm leading my photo workshops there, my clients are always like, there's so much going on. How do I identify good shots? What am I looking for? And so I tell them, the first thing I'm looking for is good color. So you're looking for the areas, the trees that have got the most colorful leaves. I'm also looking for trees that have an interesting shape. A lot of these bald cypress trees have got these really interesting twisted or leaning shapes. So if I see a tree with a really good shape, I know I can make that the focus of a composition. I'm also looking for patterns. So whenever you're working in a forest and you've got multiple trees, you can create interesting patterns with those trees. And I'm also looking to see how these things, the color, the shape, and the pattern, might interact with light and weather. And one thing I'm looking to avoid typically is bits of sky. So you'll see that all the photos I'm presenting today, I've pretty much eliminated the sky from either above or the reflection down below. And I'm trying my best to avoid having little bits of sky poking up in the background. So you can see in this photo, there's a few little bits of sky that you can see. And the reason why I don't want that is those bits of sky are brighter than the bayou. And those bright spots are going to distract the viewer. The eye is automatically attracted to something that's bright. And so if you've got these bright bits of sky, or if you've got lots of sky in the photo, then the viewer isn't going to be focusing on the beautiful colors and shapes and patterns. They're going to be drawn to that brightness. And so you want to avoid that. And that's the simple rule I have. The first thing I tell my clients when we're photographing in the bayou, just zoom in enough so that you exclude the sky above and keep out the reflection of the sky in the water. And so this photo is just an example of looking mainly at the color. I like the red leaves on the cypress tree reflected in the water as well. And there's that little dash of yellow, this little plant that's growing up in between the cypress near the base of the tree. And I also like the pattern of several tree trunks. And so I was using color, shape, and pattern to create this composition. And in this particular instance, it was soft light that I was working with. But sometimes I'll be looking for the way the light interacts with the scene to create shapes and patterns that might otherwise not be there. And so in terms of logistics for photographing the bayou, land-based opportunities are somewhat limited. There's a lot of private land around the bayou. There is a state park in Texas called Caddo Lake State Park, where there is a really nice spot to photograph the bayou from the land. They've got a boardwalk you can walk out to, but you go there, there's going to be like 100 photographers. It's a very popular place. The best perspectives